Hello, BookTube. It's essay time again, and I'm going to read the next chapter, next essay by James Evans in his Bookman in the Making, and other essays on mind and life, writers and readers. And this one is entitled A Bookman's Economies. I find his style a bit cumbersome to read, so I do apologize. It's not going to be the smoothest of reads, even for me. I do stumble for some reason over his choice of words. I sort of will sometimes say what I think should be there, and it's not. But let's give it a go and see how it works. A Bookman's Economies. The soaring prices now ruling affect every class of the community. Grievances arise from the high cost of ordinary necessaries, such as food, clothing, furniture, are widely discussed and ventilated, but little concern is apparently being felt at the problem confronting the book lover. He seems to stand outside the orbit of public comment, bearing his burden as best he may. This is perhaps not surprising. Books, in the view of most people, are a luxury, as is the soothing weed in the view of non-smokers, and are regarded with more or less indifference. But in their own way, both book lovers and smokers have their peculiar grievance. In order to adjust the balance between income and expenditure and keep the beam straight, people have resorted to all manner of shifts, practicing studied economy according to need and circumstances. How this has been done in countless ways would furnish abundant material for both tragedy and comedy. Table luxuries have had to be cut down or clean swept away. Visits to the tailor have been fewer and farther between. The old suit renovated has had to do an extra turn. Like lots of other things, the aim of all these little economies was to reduce, as Carlyle would say, the denominator. As the prices of most books have gone up double or more, the book buyer has his special problem to face in devising ways and means to keep his brain alive without prejudice to honest and straight living and without heading for bankruptcy. Such has been the persistent writer's problem, following a profession that demands constant reading. I have had to add from time to time to the contents of my bookshelves during a long course of years. In normal times, I used to apportion a certain annual sum for this purpose, and my yearly annexations were adequate to my needs. With the war came a change. To me, being neither a miner nor a policeman, subsequently bonuses came not to fatten an already exiguous stipend. The marginal trifle for the soul had for the most part to be diverted to the gross purposes of the body. This was disappointing and unsettling, and in such a mood my Weltanschauung, my view of the whole scheme of things, was anything but rosy. I imagined dark things. Authors had no business to write books. Booksellers were a gang of profiteers, and the entire publishing industry was a wanton waste of paper. This temper was short-lived, for other ideas gained the upper hand. Housewives, I thought, had to shift and make the best of things, so why not I in my own way? I forthwith collected my thoughts and proceeded with vigor to revise my position. My little library numbered about 800 volumes, and I was never prouder of my collection than I am today. Mark Pattison was wont, in his pungent way, to deride Oxford dons who were satisfied with £50 a year on books. My ambition never soared so high, Notwithstanding Mr. Burroughs' words, to be proud of having 2,000 books would be absurd. I am very proud of my 800. Among them are most of the best the world has ever produced. And while I regret that I have not read as many of them as I should have liked, I rejoice greatly that they are more than sufficient for the rest of my days. Non multa sed multum should be one's guiding principle in the matter of books. There is a kind of vanity which affects a big show of books, but it is better to know a few books than own very many. Student days are the days for garnering books for the future. Under the spell of professional advice, they rush to the book marts, making sure of that literary or technical equipment which the coming years will require sooner or later. Like others of his fellows, the writer also prophetically gathered a store of very good things, but the lust for the new in the pre-war years robbed many of those volumes of the chance of being read, and it is lucky for them that the prices of the newer wares have been prohibitive. For now, at least, those unused volumes have been dusted and cut, so long as they had their long neglect in astonishing. Mr. Burrell, to quote him again, refers in his essay on book buying to the advice of a sound, thorough, surly critic. When a new book is published, read an old one. This advice have I unwittingly, though not unexceptionally, followed. For about 6 months ago, out of a long-standing and profound respect for the great article on psychology in the Encyclopedia Britannica, I joyfully gave a round guinea for Ward's psychological principles. The reversion to old books was further supported by the practical rules given by Emerson in his fine essay in Books. They are: 1. Never to read a book that is not a year old. 2. Never to read any but famed books. And 3. Never to read any but what one likes. Thus, what with the compelling force of circumstances and the encouraging and comforting precepts of great authorities in regard to old books, booksellers have not taken much out of the pockets of late, and it is quite certain that that had all book readers done likewise, or restricted their purchases in some measure, the upward course of prices would, accordingly, in the law of probability and demand, have come to a sudden stop. My next method of economizing was to keep an eye on the second-hand shops, though through here, two prices have appreciated. The difference is less. Most bookmen can speak with triumph of lucky finds at second-hand shops, and I myself have reason for self-congratulation and on belonging to for self-congratulation on bringing off a few captures. During the second year of the war, I bought a lovely set of Shakespeare's work, dense 40 volumes in red leather, for 30 shillings. My old Shakespeare was large, cheap, and cumbrous, and the new set is a work of art and a joy forever. Among other finds are excellent editions in the original of Rousseau's Confessions and Pascal's Provincial Letters. Well may I thank the war that it brought about, for me at least, the discovery of the French language, which had for years become somewhat rusty and uninteresting. And now that our own nation and the French are united by hands so close and tender, the revised study has received an unexpected impulse, and the new enthusiasm is unabated. unabated. For only a few days ago, I rejoiced to light on a second-hand copy, second-bound 1816 edition of L'Esprit de Saint-François de Sales, a book to be ranked with the famous Imitatio of Kempis. There is, of course, nothing regular about this experience of second-hand bookshops, except that wartime poverty accentuated it, and I can well imagine that these shops have gained increased popularity in recent years. My third method of economizing has been to make one of the leading libraries has been to make use of the lending libraries. For years and years I had fought shy of these, supposing that I had more books than I could well compass. Moreover, there was a fear of that distraction which articles from which start again here. My third method of economizing has been to make use of the lending libraries. For years and years I had fought shy of these, supposing that I had more books than I could well compass. Moreover, there was a fear of that distraction which arises from too large a choice. It is easy to lose one's way among many books. Excess makes a real addition to knowledge most impossible. One is reminded of the little dog mentioned by Professor Blackie, which roamed all over the moor, sniffing here and sniffing there, but caught nothing. For reasons given above, hardly any new books were bought without my feeling obliged somehow to be abreast of certain thought. So there is nothing for it but to pocket one's prejudice and apply to the library counter. This I did with diligence, and still do, borrowing at least 2 volumes regularly every week. Never before did I realize the value of the lending library, even to a man who owned a moderate library himself. Except for very special purposes, I had never visited a bookseller's shop again. I need never visit a bookseller's shop again, for I have practically all I want at the taxpayer's expense. Having started this method, I rather like it, but to be candid, I already feel the danger of becoming distracted, but that is another matter. As a book reader, then, my economies are ascribed to 3 things, to wit, the return to old books, necessity, attention to second-hand bookshops, and prevailing with myself of the privileges of your lending libraries. Viewing these things together and knowing their names, I deem the war and its consequences have been a blessing in disguise for me. So there ends. Sorry, BookTube. I struggled with that a little bit, and it's really tired as well. It's been a rough day today. I got my groceries in, so there's lots of trips up and down the stairs. There was the 2 big boxes of books, plus couriers times 2 different times. So I'm a bit wiped. But I hope that was understandable, and we will see what we can find for tomorrow. I think I'll pop in occasionally with Evans. Is it James Evans? James Evans, but not continuously. It's a little ponderous to read. Interesting, but a little ponderous. So we'll find something else for tomorrow. Take care, BookTube.